Yeah.
Look what happened when I did it. It's terrible.
I'm doing it.
You said, no, you haven't read the story, Gerald. You got the summary all wrong. Thanks.
You can do it to me now. All right.
I know we're live, so it's all right.
Yeah. This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story once a week. I'm Anais.
I'm Gerald.
I'm Andy.
Yeah, you are.
Are we
So,
live?
Andy.
We're live. I've been shaking my head at you furiously. People watching us live must be like, what is happening?
Wah, wah.
You missed it, Andy. You're done. You broke
You
the streak.
didn't say we were
Yeah.
live.
Yeah,
Oh, I couldn't.
we
Gerald
didn't
was
plan
talking.
it, but we.
But you know what?
yeah.
I'm glad I did it. I broke your combo, Andy. The chain is broken. You can't do it anymore.
Nope,
No.
it's
That's
you're
what it means.
done.
It's over.
It's over, pal. Go. You're out. Oh no, got carried away there. Sorry.
Okay. Well, this week we read The Hunter's Wife by Anthony Doerr, or Doerr, or I think it's Doerr. Okay. A really good story. That's my summary. So no, it's the story of a hunter who is he's from Montana. He guides people out into the wilderness who come over to do some sort of hunting throughout the summer, spring, summer, and fall. And he hasn't seen his wife in 20 years. He's going to Chicago to see one of her quote unquote performances, if you want to call it like that, one of her shows. He's never seen one before. And during the course of his visit in Chicago, it's taking place at a university president's house. And through flashbacks, we learned he met his wife initially when she was 15. She was a magician's assistant. And over the years, when she and the magician would come back to town, he would go out to dinner with her. They weren't doing anything untoward yet. And then when she turned 18, she moved in with him, wintered with him in his cabin in Montana in the wilderness. That spring, they got married. And throughout the winter, that first winter, she touches a hibernating grizzly and she sees what he's dreaming. And what you learn is she has this ability to touch things that are sort of like partially dead or partially frozen or dead or sleeping. And she can see what they see or what they are dreaming. And she can see where they go in the case where they're already dead. And that the veil between wakefulness and dreaming is quite thin. The veil between life and death is quite thin. He doesn't believe she has this. Locals catch on when a man... he's driving and the truck goes into, I think it's a river or a lake, and people are fishing him out. She touches the guy's ankle, and other people who are touching the body can see what she's seeing. So there's sort of like a connection through bodies, like a current. So if she's touching a body and you're touching her, or people who are touching her, or the body itself, you can see what she sees. So word spreads of this magical ability she has. People instantly become believers. And because not only do you see it, but you become the deceased and you feel what they feel. And so people start asking her to do this when they lose loved ones and give her money, and they don't let her refuse. And he thinks it's wrong. He thinks that she's doing some sort of parlor trick, that she's taking these people in for fools. So they grow estranged. She also always is saying that he dreams of wolves all the time. And there's this one sequence where it's a really rough winter. Coyotes get into their food store. If they don't find food, they're going to die. The phone lines are down. He goes out, even though it's super cold, with his truck. His truck gets stuck in a snowbank. He's 10 miles from the hut, 30 miles from town. If he stays there, he's going to freeze to death. So he's crawling back to the cabin, and he hears wolves that are nearby waiting for him to die to feed on him and stuff. Which later on you find out there haven't been wolves there for a long time. So it's impossible that there were actually wolves there. And they have a big fight, and she says, "How can you, of all people who dreams about wolves, not believe me?" Kind of a mysterious line. Anyway, and then flash forward again back to Chicago and its hills.
Also, the State University in Chicago.
It didn't say what the university is. They said State University?
The State University with a definite article.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's from Montana, so I guess he can.
Maybe he doesn't know. He doesn't know the university. Yeah. Yeah.
We're swimming in universities here, guy.
And none of them are called the State University.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so at the reception dinner, it's the president of the university. His wife and daughters have died, and she's doing her thing, and everyone's in a circle holding hands, and he sees what she sees. He feels what she feels, which is the wife and daughters on a beach And just he feels the love between them, and he basically becomes a believer at that point, having never experienced it before. Moved by this, he leaves the house. She follows him. He's afraid to say anything to break the spell, and it ends like that. Anyway, I think I summarized it. Did I miss any important things? I think I hit the most important things.
Yeah, no, that's a summary.
Also, she makes money writing poems of the visions of like what dead animals see. Also, I thought it was interesting that the fossils of a brontosaurus, she didn't get anything from them. Basically,
Yeah, those are rocks.
Yeah, those are rocks. But a frozen mammoth, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Worked.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
What's the difference between rocks and bodies?
Okay. So,
Gerald,
what did you think of the story?
Did
I scare you?
No. Well, as I said in Slack at the time, as soon as I just when it was shared, I just had a quick look at it and I couldn't stop reading it, and I just read it all the way through. And it is it's 9,500 words, so it's quite a substantial short story, and I just loved every bit of it. It's a great story, really. I love the contrast between the wide open wilderness and the behavior and the characters and how deep they are and how carefully drawn they are. It's very, very good. Loved it a lot.
Andy?
Well, same. I read it specifically to make fun of the hills of Chicago, like right after we had recorded our last one, and then I kept reading because I was drawn in. There is one bit that I had to read out loud to my partner, and I will read it now out loud for all of you.
Okay.
She scanned his books over the fireplace, a monograph on grouse habits, a series of journals on upland game birds, a thick tome titled simply Bear.
Very good.
That. And I don't know, man. Like, obviously we knew he was a Montana hunter guy, but like he's a guy who's got a book on his shelf that says Bear.
Yeah.
And then when she starts going to the library, he starts reading the titles of her books, right? And it's all like magic and sorcery. And yeah. The comparison of the book titles is nice.
Right. Bear.
Yeah.
It's a big book.
Yes, it is a big book.
No, just I reread it again this morning just to kind of refresh, right? We've been a little while.
Holidays.
And just the bits about when they first meet, he says he dreams about being a hunter before like her dream stuff is even on the table. He dreams about being a hunter, right? What do you do? I'm a hunter. What do you dream about? Being a hunter. And the first read through, I didn't pay much attention to that because like I just thought it was metaphorical, and then dreams ended up being central to the entire thesis. And then we read that he doesn't actually dream about being a hunter; he dreams about being a wolf. And it's just real good, right? And that the wolves like sort of harrying him while he was dragging himself seemed real scary at the time, but then put into the broader context of everything, like none of these are hellish dreams that she sees, right? Like all of the afterlives and dreams are like your soul's true desire, right? They're wonderful and magnificent. So man, those wolves were his friend when he was dying, right?
Yeah, it's his pack. I had the same reading. It's his pack waiting for him to join them.
Yeah.
Because remember, she also says the reason she loves winter so much is because the animals that are like half dead or frozen, like in that weird state between like technically alive, but I don't know about that. Like, right? Like the salamanders that thaw in her palm.
Right.
That's what he is at that point. He is freezing to death. He is partially dead as he is crawling back to the cabin. And that's when he sees and hears the wolves. Yeah. Or he doesn't see them, but he can definitely hear them and he smells them. He smells them.
Right. He smells them. Right.
He smells them. Which of course he smells them. He's a wolf.
Well, and like all the other humans have dreams about like, oh, riding my bike with my kid, right? Like, or what are they, fishing or on the beach or something? I don't know. Water.
Yeah, it's all stuff like that. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm a wolf. I don't know. He's a cool guy. I like him.
Yeah.
But he's also specifically the guy who could not believe in this.
Right, which again, the second read through, then that line makes so much more sense. Where she's like, "How can you of all people not believe me? You who dream of wolves." And you're like,
Right.
"Okay, she's just being a weird magic person right now." Like, no, she's being very specific. Like, you are experiencing this all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You live in an altered reality than other humans do.
Yeah, you are not normal, sir.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's real
It
good.
is.
It's real
It's
good.
really clever too. There's so much clever writing in there, and it's a funny story because it's not going to change your life. It's not going to you're not going to sort of go forward and with this story and do so. It's just a really enjoyable thing to read. It's beautifully written, and it's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Just simply that.
That's such a great point, because a lot of times when we say, "Oh, the story was so good," there's like some like bigger theme that really resonates, or some like truth about like the human condition or life, which is not the case in this one, or at least for me, not really. But it's just so beautifully put together. The story's great. It's so engaging, and the emotional sort of resonance of it. Like at the end, I felt like haunted and hollowed out. I felt like I was Winter, right? Like it's just like changes your like emotional state as you read it. By the end of it, like you feel something, or throughout it really. But at the end, it just sort of like leads you with this like, I don't know. It's good.
Yeah. I think that's a good description, anyways, because the first time I read it, I was absolutely drawn along the whole thing, right? I read it without intending to, and actually from a kind of a snarky headspace, right? I was like, I'm going to make fun of this Hills of Chicago story.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
The story made fun of you.
And then I got to the end the first time I read it, and I was like, that just dropped me. It brought me along this beautiful journey and dropped me, and I was irritated. But then I don't know. I read it again this morning, and the same thing happened, but I was right. I felt hollowed out by it, but
yes,
but not. Yeah.
Because it's such a complete story, isn't it? It has the setting and the starkness of the wilderness and the danger of the wilderness, and yet the central theme, the central idea of the stories is dreams, people having dreams, and the dreams of the dead, and all that sort of thing, which is so sort of ethereal and in doesn't really exist, and yet it sits in so well with the starkness of this rough landscape.
Yeah, and the descriptions of the landscape, because I think we've also read stories on this show that are very description heavy. That sometimes the descriptions are beautiful, or or sometimes it's like, okay, you start to skim it a little bit. Like, I get it, there's trees, right? But this one didn't do that. Like this one, for some reason, just felt, I don't know, like the descriptions themselves were doing a lot of emotional work, which I don't know how he did it. That is amazing, and people should study that. So.
Yeah, it's not like you're seeing the landscape through his or her eyes. So like a lot of writers would say, the trees were this and the snow and the hills and that sort of stuff. It's all described because he's in it or they're in it, and it's all described as impacting on them and how it affects them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the way, like, remember the super rough winter, and like the cattle are getting out and they're dying, and then like there's their blood running down like the hillsides on the snow, like the way that some of the way, it's like described in a very simple way, but it's setting a very clear tone from what he's choosing to focus on or paint in your mind. And I think that contributes to that hollowed out feeling at the end, which is why if they would have said anything at the end, it might have ruined it, because he was silently painting this emotional picture for you, hollowing you out without a lot of dialogue. There isn't that much dialogue. And at the very end, it's just the two of them standing there with this quiet understanding between them, as there kind of always was from the beginning. This is not a big romance story. He takes her out, gives her rhubarb pie. You know what I mean? Like, even their courting is him being a wolf. He just like follows her around for years until she's ready. I just thought it was really beautiful. Oh. Yeah. I remember when he says, like, being with her when he finally has her didn't feel the way it would. It didn't actually, because he had sort of like, in a way, hunted her because of the way that humans are. If you bring the word hunt into a romance, it sounds extremely predatory. But this story, despite the fact that she was 15 when you first saw her, still didn't quite feel that way. You never got the sense that she was in danger or she was necessarily trapped, right? So, yeah, he pursues her in a wolfish kind of way, but not necessarily in a predatory way, which is like, you have to read the story to know what I mean, guys. All right. And then when he finally gets her, there's this line about how it didn't feel like when you're hunting, you finally get, you finally get the kill. It felt very different. It was not what he expected. Anyway, it's just interesting. Yeah. Because she's still a human. Like, she's a person, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a wolf man. Yeah.
It's I just sort of looking back at the bit towards the end where she does the reading for the president or whatever he is, and that's so interesting that you really saw and felt what she was feeling, and so it was so descriptive, but not intrusively descriptive. It's just the right level.
Yeah,
that's so good.
I don't know how much more praise I can heap on. Like, it's just good. Read it. Also, if you want to learn how to, like, I don't know. I feel like I'd have to go through and be like, break down every descriptive sentence and say, what is this doing emotionally and how is he achieving this from a craft perspective? Because we've read so many things with lots of descriptions that don't accomplish this. Like stories have taken us on emotional roller coasters, but it's the plot that does it. And I don't think it's the plot that takes an emotional roller coaster here necessarily. Kind of. It's important, but
no, right. You're right. The plot's the plot's almost meaningless to the emotional arc of the story. Right?
Almost. Up until the very end. It comes into play when she's finally validated and he believes in her magical ability. But for most of the story, there's an emotional arc going on here that's like just him. Yeah.
Yep. You know, I don't know. I like, it's frustrating in a sense, but I like that her magic powers are just so easily empirically tested, right? Like, no, man, if you just hold my hand, you will see visions of the dead.
And he resisted doing that. Like, imagine if he had done that earlier. He didn't want that. He was fighting it. He didn't want that confirmed for him. Right. He wanted to believe.
It's like what, on their first date where he's like, you got like puppet legs in there, right? Like he doesn't want magic. He doesn't live in a magic world. Which on one sense, no, you do because you're a wolf man. But on the other sense, like, no, he doesn't because he's a wolf.
Right.
Right. He doesn't live in a magic world. He lives in a hunting world.
But it is pretty magical that a human being can kind of live like a wild animal, because like the way that he winters is insane. Like we're all brushing past this very interesting fact that he winters like a crazy person. Like,
well, he winters like a guy who lives in a cabin in Montana. Like,
yeah, but he's 30 miles from the nearest town in a Montana winter. That's crazy. You're wintering like a crazy person.
Right. Well, right, because what? Not to offend our Montanian. What do you think that is? Our listeners who live in Montana. But I don't know, man. Even if I was a hunter guide in Montana, I'd come out for the season and then go somewhere else for the winter.
Or like, even if you're going to stay in Montana. Yeah, or like, even if you're like, I love the wilderness, like, how about 2-3 miles, 5? Like something where like, if
that's surely where his hunting cabin is 30 miles in the wilderness, and probably 40. In the summer he stays there. But his house should be somewhere else. Nope.
I know. Nope. Yeah. Also, I love how, again, very wolfish. What's the first thing he does the first time he brings her to the cabin? Shows her all his food stores.
Look at my food.
Look at all the things.
Here's my den.
Yeah. I'm very good at hunting. Are you impressed?
Dried meat.
Yeah. And she's like, I can just go to the supermarket because I'm a human.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's 100 smoked trout, enough for 2 of me.
Oh, my friend's listening to us. He's calling us city slickers.
I mean, Not wrong, but also like
40 miles from the nearest town, Gabe. 40 miles in
Wow.
a Montana winter. This man is crazy, but he's a wolf, so it's fine.
Yeah.
You'd like the story, by the way.
You should read it.
Yeah.
It's very.
There's a link in the description.
Is there? Excellent.
Mhm.
That's handy.
I did not encourage Karina to read this yet, but actually, the more I talk
should.
about it, the more she absolutely should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. Yeah.
And I sent it to my partner too because it's such a good example of telling a story without hitting people over the head with the plots. So it's a bit like what people think of as a literary short story, in that it's more about character development and character arcs and that sort of thing. But there is a bit of a plot in there, and there's a bit of a progression, and there's and it just it's got so much of what we like to read in it.
Yeah. And it's funny because we've talked a lot about in the past, sometimes like being snarky, like MFA voice, or like where everything is like overly trying to add too much emotion, and you can feel the heavy hand of it into like a description of like a bottle on like a table or something, right? This is doing what that is trying. Well, when it's done poorly, sometimes it's done well. We've had a lot of stories that do it well. I think this one does it the best. Yeah. Just like, yeah, pulling that meaning from character arc and description, because sometimes it can feel heavy-handed and forced, but this time it didn't.
And the characters are really interesting without overloading you with character quirks and weird things and making them stereotypes. They're very, very different sorts of people that I don't know where they came from, but they're very cleverly.
Yeah, and I like the choice to make the woman with the magical powers named Mary Roberts, just like a very normal, plain name. Like, she doesn't strike you as a particularly weird person. She's not like a caricature. She comes to the event in a suit, a double-breasted suit. She's not like coming here dressed up like some sort of like crazy medium. She's not like putting on caricature in any way. She has no costume for this. Yeah, I liked it. Those were really good choices.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also like that the hunter's name is the Hunter, right? Like we get his last name a couple times when people from the university are calling him Mr. Whatever, but that's not who anyone else. That's how his wife calls him. I don't imagine like he's the Hunter.
Yeah.
The Hunter. Yeah.
Okay. So we've been heaping praise, and I have nothing negative to say. It was too good for like, 23 minutes. Anything else we want to add before we rate? Anything we missed?
I did try and figure out what was going on with these hills of Chicago. And then I was going to make fun of some stuff. I was like, okay, well, maybe he flew into Midway because, like, I don't know. If you fly into O'Hare, then you don't start in downtown. You start in the suburbs. Right? And so I just assumed he flew into O'Hare because I'm, elitist. I'm a little snobby about my airports.
So if he flew to the airport, would he have seen hills? No, still no, right?
Well, no, still no hills. There's
still no hills.
Nonsense. But
no hills outside Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he would have seen some hills while he was flying, but
not
once he was close enough to see an ice rink. I'll tell you that.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just go first with the ratings. 6 because it's too good. I don't know who wants to also give their next 6. I
was thinking about giving it a 5, but
okay.
No, I'm going to give it a 6.
That's right.
Of course.
It's too good.
Why wouldn't you? No, it has to be a 6. I couldn't find anything I didn't, even because I don't generally like longer short stories. I think they can drag sometimes, but this didn't drag at all. So even that little thing, nope. Quite happy with it. 6 from me.
Right. Yeah. It pulls you right through it. Like it pulls you right through the story.
Yeah. You do not feel the length, because when I did see the length before I recommended it, I thought of you, Gerald, because you tend to be like, you want to get to the point a lot quicker. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Once you start going over 7,000, I feel like 6,000, you're okay. 7,000, you start to be like, okay, all right, this is droning on. But this one really didn't.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. You
Also,
really don't.
I was recently just plugging re-listening to our discussion of Freyr by Tommy Orange. That's the one with the guy who has a third hand coming out of his chest that we all loved. Well, we didn't all love to start. You loved it more than anything else you've ever read in your entire life, Andy.
Yep.
Yeah.
I loved that one.
Obviously.
Yeah. And then Gerald started like, I don't know. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But by the end, Gerald, you gave it a 6. I forgot about that.
What?
Yeah. By the end of the
That's
discussion,
crazy
you were
talk.
like, I know. You were like, by the end of the discussion, you're like, yeah, I was going to come in like, I don't know, 4. And then you're like, what? The discussion took you all the way to a 6. It was such a jump. You should re-listen to that.
Wore a glove over his hand.
Crazy.
He
Crazy.
shook
crazy.
hands with a third hand, and it was like oddly erotic. To anyone listening to this, it just published today. Go listen to Freyr by Tommy Orange, or read the story too. It's not that long. That story was wild. Very different from this one.
Oh, thanks for the nice comment, Sophia. Or Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for the nice comments. Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't do the game anymore.
Right.
Nope.
I mean, we could.
Nah.
Like,
Well, I've forgotten what it is now.
I have it.
No, I have it too.
Okay.
Well, because we've been on holiday, we've had a few weeks off, and he said with about half a second's notice, "You're going to choose a story, Gerald." So I'm afraid I went back to Carve magazine, but it's got magical realism in this one, apparently.
right.
Yeah.
So, maybe. So from Carve magazine, it's The Paper Tiger by Lindsay Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. And for those of us who only listen to the audio and don't watch us on YouTube, I was rolling my eyes as Gerald made excuses for why he went to Carve again. Oh, yes, it's because of the timer.
Yes, exactly. I like Carve magazine.
Playfully rolling my eyes. Playfully.
Yes, of course.
You were going to Carve because it's Carve.
Because I haven't been there for a few months, so
That's true. That's true. We
I have to work hard to stay away from it. It's like a little tick. To just no, I'm gonna choose something else this time, but eventually it draws me in.
Okay, well, but before you go to Carve, tell us about your visions of the beyond and your thoughts on this story in our Facebook group, The Literary Roadhouse Readers. And I'll share my own dreams with you right now. I dream of you, dear listeners, supporting us on iTunes with a review to help others find us. And of course, supporting us on Patreon to keep the podcast warm and alive through the winter months. If you'd like to contribute, visit patreon.com/literary roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with the vanishing wolves in your life. Until next time, read a good story.